I'm going to show you two drawings in this video, both dealing with blocking in. In working with the straight line tools, and working big to small and using an open form, you've possibly already done this. So now we're going to name it, put a button on it, and take it further. You'll see in this drawing I'm plotting out the axes of various parts of this plant. The most prominent direction is its major axis, and the second most prominent is its minor axis. You can sometimes see an axis in something like this that corresponds to the center line of the branches or stems. They each have an axis, but to make sense of a twisting, complicated spatial form, you probably find the major axis is actually some confluence of the plant's parts, some through line or sweep of the thing's directions. Similarly, on your page, in your composition, you can locate a major axis and a minor axis. And think what is the longest meaningful line you can draw across, a primary direction or division, and what is the secondary line. A single line will divide your page, but with two lines having difference, then you have form, you have specificity of position, you can give a point of view. But I digress. Blocking in is made up of a similar decision-making process, but instead of determining the divisions and movements running through the form, you're creating the enveloping shape, the outer parameters of what you're drawing. You may block in the composition, block in an object, block in groups of things. And then as the work develops, you block in shapes inside of shapes as you work from big to small. As we jump forward, we move from where the upper part of the plant was most apparently blocked in. Now you start to see, some of the individual leaves have been blocked in, not fully described, but found these shapes that groups of leaves fit within. Finding the block that the head of that shovel fits within. Because you can block in positive and negative shapes, you block in closed shapes and open shapes, block in layers of differentiated line as you move from big to small, flat to spatial form, block in objects, parts, groupings. This is another simple but really versatile tool for constructing a drawing, relating its parts to the whole and making unique discoveries. This is an abstraction process. Drawing is an abstraction process. And even as we move from here to more realistic or illusionistic outcomes, this is a coded language. It's not literal. It's relative. One thing looks close because another part is made to appear far away. It's a construct. Drawing is an unnatural act. In this next video, I'm going to block in first the grouping created by these two objects, and then that's going to be subdivided to portray the presence of both things and better cover the composition of the page. You'll get a better sense here of the measured approach involved. If you have a hard time getting a handle on blocking in, what it is, there's an anecdote about Michelangelo chiseling his marble figures from the stone, and he would select the stones, the quarry that felt like they contained those figures. And some of his most famous works are The Prisoners, in which the bodies appear to be writhing out of the stone, some limbs, backs, or heads still trapped in the rock. When you block in your drawing, you block in a figure, you're creating that unique shape that is alive with potential, like those irregular, evocative marble blocks. As you move forward in the process, you don't go from that unadjusted mass to smooth flesh. You make shapes inside of shapes, subdividing and adjusting relations, chipping closer to the surface. Nothing is even or democratic. Democracy is good for society, but it's lousy for a drawing. You're looking, again, gathering up from the beginning of what we started here. You're looking for each engagement, each time that you come to the page to make a line or group of lines. You're shifting that balancing act. You're finding ways to make variety that's exciting in the work. And so these lines, again, even in these first minutes of the drawing, those unnameable shapes have to do with the position and placement of things. And then if we jump ahead, then you can see that idea of starting to make shapes inside of the shapes that were first begun, and again starting to sort of push and pull the space so that the line work of what's near starts to pull in front of what's behind because of the particular way of emphasizing with greater line or density, et cetera, and a different kind of character to the lines maybe in the foreground versus the background. And you'll see this drawing go through a few different stages, and you'll see it start to gather more line on form, like we've seen in some of these drawings. Kind of a directional line that starts to help to separate parts and bind them together at the same time in different ways. We're not so much thinking of those things as shading at this point, although you probably are starting to get into hatching, and hatching and cross hatching will be the subject of the next video. But here it's again, these things are all line and really have to do with the way that you can set a line on the surface, as long as it has something to do with the direction of the form that you see, as long as it has something to do with the movement through the drawing around the form of its design or the form of its space. To make a drawing with guts, I think you have to keep turning it over. You go through multiple stages where the drawing is complete. I would argue that in the first few minutes, that was in some sense a kind of complete drawing, and it was again as it jumped forward, and as we move again, it'll be another drawing. It goes through these kind of waves, and so each time it becomes something new. If it's the same form after an hour that it was in 30 minutes, you didn't make enough decisions. And if the final form springs from the core of what you saw in the first few minutes, but there's much more there, then it's a good day, I think. As we move deeper into the program, just say, I think you should be tired after drawing. You should be in an instant of heightened awareness. It's like a heightened physical or psychophysical awareness. It's not comfortable.